Welcome to the SpiritWoke Podcast, podcasting from the beautiful city of Stillwater, the birthplace of Minnesota. Are you going through a spiritual awakening? Do you wish to learn more about continued spiritual growth and want to meet others who are on a similar journey? We hope that this podcast and its community can be a meaningful resource for you. The SpiritWoke Podcast welcomes special guests from around the globe who share personal stories of their awakening journey, along with details of spiritual abilities they've developed along the way. So buckle up and get ready for this exciting episode. And now, here's your host, Adam Dins.
Friends, welcome back to the SpiritWoke Podcast. Today we're talking with very special guest, Kristina Bloom, about a topic near and dear to my heart, connecting with the other side. Kristina is a psychic, medium, and a channel for the divine. For 20 years, she has been facilitating individual and gallery psychic readings across the country, speaking in front of both large and small groups. She is also the creator of the Intuitive You Psychic Development Program and has recently published a book for the program by the same name. You can learn more about Kristina at KristinaBloom.com. That is Kristina Bloom, BLOOM.com. So, Kristina, welcome to the SpiritWoke Podcast.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you. I really appreciate being here.
Well, I'm thrilled to have you. And so just for the audience sake, Kristina and I met a couple of weeks ago at a spiritual and wellness fair here in Minnesota. And I had the pleasure of meeting Kristina before the event began. We were both exhibiting and we were both speaking, but Kristina did an incredible gallery reading the night before and dazzled and amazed the audience with her abilities to connect with the other side. And I am just so excited to have you here to talk to us about that topic tonight.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you.
So, Kristina, before we get into talking about the other side and, all of the fascinating related topics, can you tell the audience a little bit about your spiritual awakening?
Sure, no problem. First, I would like to say that spiritual awakenings happen in stages. It's not like one big event and then you're set for life because, of course, we're growing as we're going through life. But my first experience with psychic ability, I was a toddler, 2 or 3 years old. And in my dream, I had a dream. And in my dream, I walked into my grandparents' home office. And instead of a desk, there was a lady in a hospital bed. There was a step stool there, and I climbed up on the step stool. I kissed the lady on the cheek or the forehead and pulled a sheet over her head and then woke up crying. My mom was she came running in, why are you waking up screaming in the middle of the night? And I managed to be able to express what had happened. And I was a very verbal kid. Haven't stopped talking yet, in case you haven't noticed. But she called her mom, and her mom was actually picking up the phone to call her to tell her an uncle had passed away. It was an uncle I didn't know somewhere in Sweden. And then my mom told her about the dream that I had, and that was it. I had that dream 5, 6 times throughout my childhood, and every time I did, some relative I'd never heard of had passed away that day.
Wow, that's incredibly powerful. So, so that was like so you're saying that's like the beginning of your spiritual awakening. That was the first 2 years old. Yeah,
that was my first psychic experience.
Wow, that's amazing. And so, like, how did you, it's probably hard to remember back then, so this may be a bogus question, but how does a 2-year-old react to experiencing that?
I really don't remember. In fact, if I hadn't heard the story a whole bunch of times, I probably wouldn't even know it. I don't know. The thing was, when you grow up psychic and you know you're psychic, it's like anything else. You think everybody's the same. So I was probably in middle school before I found out not everybody was psychic.
Were you like the popular kid in middle school because you could tell kids about stuff that was going on that they didn't know about?
No, I scared them.
Really?
Yeah, they're like, stop being weird. You shouldn't know stuff like that. How come you know that? Who told you? And So it does not make someone popular, at least not in the 1970s.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. So is that hard on you? Like, were you able to? Because I assume being a psychic and a medium that when you're around people, you get all of this information about them. Were you able to like turn that off and say, like I at some point I don't want to know things about people that I'm around. I'd rather be ignorant, or did you just let it all come in and whatever it was, it was?
I didn't know how at that time to turn it off. I've since learned in adulthood how to, turn the switch on and off, because it's exhausting to go around and feel everything and hear everything and see things all the time. It's just too much. So as an adult, I learned how to turn it off. As a kid, no, I didn't know how to turn it off. I was just walking around in overwhelm the whole time, because I'm also empathic, which is, feeling what everyone else is feeling all the time. And I'm also a physical empath. So if someone's in physical pain and I'm near them, I feel that too. So it was pretty overwhelming in junior high and high school, because everybody's crazy, at that time in their life. So, that was a little bit difficult.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. There's a medium here. Well, I shouldn't say here. I'm in Minnesota, but she's in Mauston, Wisconsin, and I've spoken to her a few times. Had her connect with my dad and some other people who have crossed over. But she shared with me that when she's connecting with someone who's crossed over, she can like feel the pain that they experienced during their death, and like she just feels it. And she's like, Adam, after all these years, like it adds up, like this, just that, like for instance, my dad was in a traumatic car accident. And so she felt that accident when she was connecting with him. And it's interesting because, when you talk to people with the gift that you have, obviously us lay people on the other side are like, oh, you can connect with our loved ones who have crossed over. But I don't think we realize the depths of which you can.
Right. Right. I have actually requested of Spirit to stop putting me through that, to stop feeling how everyone died. And sometimes I still will if it's important to the person I'm talking to make the connection so that they know that it's like confirmation for the person. But I really just sat down with my spirit guides one day and said, look, you can't keep beating me up like this. It's not okay.
Yeah.
And then it backed off some.
Gosh, I can't even imagine. But it's great. Isn't it so interesting that you have to like communicate that to spirit? You would think that after all these thousands and thousands of years and longer than thousands of years, that spirit would be like, most people with disability don't like when they feel the death experience. So maybe we'll just start by not introducing that element, and then if they want to feel it, they can request it.
That would be so much nicer. Yeah, it would. The thing is that not everyone in spirit has been in a body, so they don't have a reference point for pain.
Oh, that's fascinating. That's fascinating.
Or it's been a long time, like they haven't reincarnated in 1,000 years or something. That the memory of pain fades.
Yeah. Wow, that's really deep. That's really deep, and that's comforting too. For those of us who have lost ones we care about, to know that pain. Yeah. So Kristina, we know when someone passes on, it is often said that, and I'm putting my fingers up in quotes here, that they cross over, and I'm about to do my Dr. Evil quote fingers again, to the other side.
Yeah.
So in your experience with mediumship, what is the other side?
The other side is an energy field. Once we leave our bodies, we become pure energy. So the other side is an energy field. And basically, people experience it different, somewhat based on what they expect to experience. And some people, it's been really varied. I have talked to so many different people. Those who are there in the energy field, those who are here, to people who've had near-death experiences and have experienced what the other side is for them. And there seems to be a few different categories, and I'm probably putting my foot in my mouth because someone is going to jump in and say, well, that wasn't my experience, which I totally understand. We're individuals. A A feeling of pure love is a very common sensation for those who have a near-death experience or leave their bodies permanently. For some people, a fear of, and a religiously based fear, well, I haven't been a very good person, so I'm going to go to hell. And those are the ones who tend not to cross over. Like, they're not in their bodies, but they don't leave the earth plane, what we would refer to as ghosts. Yeah, those are the ones who don't cross over. It's really interesting because we still have personality when we enter into the energy field, but we're also not completely intact who we are. I feel like when I call someone on the other side, let's say I'm reading for you and you wanted to talk to your dad, then I would call him by name. And by the way, not everyone gets names. Please don't judge our ability on that. So I would call him by name, and it may take him some time to show up. I mean, he might show up immediately, but he has to pull together enough of his own molecules from that lifetime to be able to communicate with you so that you would recognize who he is.
Oh, wow. And they're that intelligent, huh? Where the energy's that intelligent where it knows to just form itself, like reform itself. And
right. Right.
Wow, that's powerful. Yeah. Have you read that? Have you ever read the book Seth Speaks?
I think a long time ago.
Yeah, I think it was written in the 70s, and it was like one of the first books written of someone who channeled the spirit of a guy named Seth. And I think Seth may have been a psychologist. I'm going to butcher this, so let me not go into too much detail on it, but Seth came back basically to explain. He was channeled and he wanted to come back and explain and write this book about what the other side is like and all that other stuff. And to your point, one of the things that Seth said is that, the first thing that people tend to experience when they cross over is what they expect to experience, because, if we have beliefs of things that will happen or should happen when we die, like if we're religious and we believe we're going to die and go see, and see Jesus, well, if we don't see Jesus when we cross over, we see something else, and it's not like we forget everything that we learned while we're alive when we cross over, and so it can be kind of jarring. So there's this process of sort of you kind of just ease into it a little bit. It's sort of a process. Is that kind of what you have learned through your experience?
Yeah, that is what I have learned. And for people who have a memorial service or a funeral after they pass, a lot of people don't cross over until after that event happens. It's like they're saying goodbye. No, I can see them at funerals, and I'm sure there are other people who can too, but not everyone else can. But it just seems like a lot of them hang around until after that, and then they feel like, okay, I said my goodbyes, I can go now.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. That's really interesting. So, Kristina, let me ask you this question. So a lot of us in the spiritual community believe that we are all one, right? Like there's no difference between you and me. We're all made of the same source energy, or we're the universe experiencing itself in whatever incarnation we take in each lifetime. So how does that concept align with life after death and connecting with our loved ones who have left the earth plane? If we all are that source energy, and we are all part of the universe, and the universe experiencing itself, how does that work with like then us connecting with source energy, if that's what we are, who have crossed over? I'm rambling now, but do you know where I'm getting at?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. Well, it's the energy field that we go back to. We come from the energy field, we go back to the energy field. And again, when I cross over, if my parents are over there and they want to pull themselves together to greet me, great. That's how we do it. They just pull themselves together. And I have also had conversations with those who are in the energy field where they can hold on to the personality if they want to. It's all choice. Think about how creative and powerful creators we are here on Earth dealing with physical matter, they don't even have to deal with physical matter. They just have pure energy to deal with. So they can create anything they want to.
Wow. How then does the concept of reincarnation fit into all of that? If, with being that energy.
Okay, so I'm going to try to make this as simple as possible because it's a really bizarre construct for the human brain to wrap around. Let's just use our imaginations and imagine like the energy field is inside of a big cauldron, okay? And when we leave our bodies and we cross over, we go back into the energy field inside the cauldron. And maybe the conscious part of us wants to, there's a life review too. We haven't even covered that. Remind me to cover the life review.
Okay.
Okay, so we're back into this cauldron, and let's say I'm there and I decide I could have done something better. I didn't really achieve what I wanted to. I want to go back and try again. So in order to get a soul into a body, obviously in our species anyway, you have to have two people to make that happen. But then it's like dipping a ladle or like a soup spoon into the cauldron and pulling out some energy to make a human being, and they pour it in there. And this is how people can have so many different past lives because, maybe it got like 70% of who I am now back into it, but maybe there's 30% of the people around me. And so I experienced their past lives too, but now it's incorporated into me. Did that make any sense?
It was making sense up until the very end with that 30% piece.
Okay, well, that was just a number I pulled out of thin air.
No, I totally got that. I guess I was just I'm trying to visualize what that means.
Yeah. So let's look at the energy as liquid. Maybe that would help.
Okay.
So if you have a pan of water and you take a glass of water and you pour it into the pan of water, and then you take a scoop and you try to get out just the water that you just poured in from the glass, you're still going to get some of the other water.
Right.
Okay, kind of the same concept, but with energy, because we all return to the energy.
So then, so you're saying when we reincarnate, we don't just come back with our call it our personality alone. We may end up bringing some of the other energy back with us from other source that's up there.
Right.
Interesting. But it doesn't matter because we're all the same anyway. It's just
right.
Yeah, that's where it gets into the whole
yeah.
do.
And this is where the philosophical discussions come from. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really powerful. I've always thought a lot about that in terms of when someone crosses over and they go to the other side and then they come back, right? So maybe they're living another life. And so if they come back and they're living another life already, but I'm trying to connect with them on the other side, right? What's that all about? Do they leave a portion of themselves? Is it because there's if it was 70%, to your point, of that water mixed with 30% of somebody else, there's still that other 30% of them still on the other side that's still there, that's able to kind of manifest itself into that personality?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so deep. Yeah, that's interesting. So have you, in your ability to communicate with those who've crossed over, do you ever just see the energy, or do the folks who have crossed over always appear as who they were when they were here in this incarnation?
They will appear in whatever way it takes to get the message across. So if they need to look like somebody's dad, they'll look like somebody's dad. Like your dad could take on enough physical characteristics where I could describe it to you and you would say, yes, that's my dad.
Okay. So it's because they want the person who's calling on them or there to connect with them to really believe and to have that validation that they are talking to a legitimate person or soul.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay, so you asked me to ask about the life review. So I'm excited to hear your take on the life review. So what does that consist of? What's that all about?
Okay, well, it's my understanding that every time that we leave a physical life and we go back to the energy, before we completely immerse ourselves back in the energy field, we have an opportunity to look back on the life we just lived and look at what we had wanted to accomplish before we went into that life. Looking at our Akashic records, looking at all the things that we wanted to do or that we wanted to experience, and then we have the opportunity to look back on that life and go, I really like that. I could have done that better. I really failed at this. Okay, that was a complete washout. I'm starting over. We have the ability to do that and to really process. What do they call that? When someone's been through a traumatic experience, what is that called? Debriefing or something?
You mean
I don't remember.
On the other
side? No, on this side. I'm making an analogy.
You mean, like when they're talking with the police, or like what's your? Oh yeah, when they're debriefing, yeah.
Debriefing. So it's kind of the same thing, because life is a traumatic experience for most spirits. So, we get over there, and then before we even mix our molecules back in with the rest of the energy field, we have the opportunity to look back on that and go, okay, what would I do different if I was going to go back next time?
Interesting. Yeah, and we've had a few guests on the podcast talk about the life review, and in fact, one of our guests experienced 2 near-death experiences, and I talk about her a lot on the podcast. Her name's Carrie Cohan. She wrote the book The 5 Lessons of Life, and in her second near-death experience, she got to she went through a life review of sorts, and it's fascinating to think about that. And so do we have the choice to come back again? Can we choose to say, hey, you know what, I'm good. Like that was tough, and I didn't learn everything I wanted to, but you know what, it's paradise over here, so I'm not going back again. Do we have that option?
It's my understanding that we do, yes. And also, this isn't the only place we could go. I mean, the energy field covers all of existence everywhere. So maybe we don't want to be human again. Maybe we want to be Pleiadian, or maybe we want to be Arcturian, or maybe we want to be a horse or a dog or a kitten. I don't know. But we don't always have to be human either.
Interesting. Wow. Okay.
Have you ever looked at an animal in the eyes and you go, you look like a dog on the outside, but those aren't dog eyes? There's somebody in there.
Yeah, I lost my buddy Sammy back in 2014, and I always say that he was more like a brother to me than he was a dog, and like a little brother who oftentimes could feel like a big brother. And I've got 2 boys now, Scrappy and Pappy, and Scrappy's like my little baby for sure, but when it's different when I look at him than when I look at Sammy. And I always look in their eyes too, because I'm always looking for that. I always want to make that connection, when until it weirds them out and they're like, hey, stop looking at me.
Right.
I'm running away.
Yeah, and they do. Yeah. I don't know. My understanding, just from communicating with those on the other side for so many years, is that sometimes people or a soul, like you being a human is really hard. And sometimes a soul will want to take a break, but not just stay over there, take a physical form. So they'll take a form of a pet. They'll take a form for a lifetime of a dog or a pet because it's a short lifetime. I mean, it's a blip on the screen for them.
Yeah.
And just kind of take a break and chill out and relax and kind of grit their things together and then come back again maybe later as a human and try again. But again, Earth is not the only option. So you could end up anywhere if you chose it.
So is it kind of like the other side can get a little boring, like when you're at a party for too long and you're like, hey, you know what, like this was fun, but I'm ready for something else. Is that why we choose to come back? Because I think like, wow, the other side, this amazing, beautiful energy, like once I'm there, I wouldn't want to go. But at the same time, my friend Alan Watts, I call him my friend because I've listened to him so much. I feel like he's my buddy, but he says he talks a little bit about, so you think when you die and you go to heaven and that you just stay there forever and it's this pure bliss, but he's like, don't you think that gets boring after a while? And it's like, yeah, I guess kind of just being in the same place for too long. I mean, like, is that what goes on? You after a while you're like, I'm just ready for something different or to try something new again?
I would assume so. I would probably get bored. I get bored if I don't move around very much. I've also had some near-death experiences, and I haven't stayed there long enough to start the review or to get bored with it. So there aren't words strong enough for the love that's there. And so it's like, I think if souls want to experience, and that's what physical worlds are for, because when we're back in pure energy, we know everything there is to know. It's not like we have to come here to learn something. We intentionally leave knowledge behind so we can experience it. Because if we came in and we remembered everything that we already know, and we're going through this life and we already know, well, this is going to happen and that's going to happen and that's going to happen. Well, there's no experience in that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can't remember who I was listening to. I think it might have been Alan Watts, but he was saying something like or no, it wasn't Alan Watts. I can't remember who it was, but they said if all you know is love, then you don't really know what it is because you haven't experienced it, right? If that's all. So in order to experience it and to really know what it is, you also have to experience what it isn't. And you have to experience all of those other things. So like when all you're surrounded around is pure love, and that's who we are at our essence, right? Like when we come here and we experience all this other stuff in life, either we start to awaken in this lifetime, which we start to remember who we are, and we start to feel that love again, or when we get back to the other side, we experience it again, and it all makes sense because we now know what it's like to not have that or to not be in that perfect pure love state. Right.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. I've sat with sacred medicine before, and I've experienced probably a few times, and I know it's not anything near what that beautiful love is on the other side. I think it's just a taste of it, but I've felt even in those moments that powerful love, which is undescribable, which is just and again, I know it's probably nothing like it is on the other side, but even that alone, if that's just a tiny bit, if that's just a taste, I can't even imagine what it's like on the other side. And it's not even just feeling loved, it's being loved. It's like there's no other feeling, but you think of anything and you just feel this enormous love for it, and it's like, wow, like this is amazing. Like, what is this, me feeling this? Like how, like I'm I can be Mr. Grumpy sometime, but I just feel all of this love, and I can't explain, like, just amazing emotionally, and it's this energy too. It's like, it's just this powerful love energy that acts like a battery. It just like radiates, and it just jolts you full of energy and life. It's amazing.
I completely agree with that. And the experience that you're talking about comes very, very close to what it feels like there on the other side.
Wow. That's awesome. That's awesome.
The difference is that when we're here on Earth and we get a taste of that, we know that it's not going to last.
Yeah.
But when you're there, it's going to last because that's what it is. That's what the existence is.
Yeah. And maybe that's part of the lesson for those of us who do get to experience it here, is to, because I think when we experience it, we can also juxtapose it against how we normally feel.
Right.
And we do get that dualistic view of love, or, I call it unconditional love. I don't know what you call it, but you get the juxtaposition of those two states, and it's really powerful.
It is incredibly powerful. It's almost like trying to describe it is insulting because we don't have a good way to do it.
Yes. It really is. Yeah, I remember, I'm a storyteller. I love telling stories, hence the podcast. And I found that, for me, and we're going to talk about this in a minute, that everybody has gifts and abilities, to develop psychic and mediumship abilities. I haven't found mine yet, but with that being said, when I've experienced, so the closest I get to that is when I've sat with sacred medicine, and a lot of times when I go sit with sacred medicine, I want to remember what it feels like and what the experience is, so I can come back and share it with other people. Because again, I'm a storyteller. I want people to know, and I want to encourage people. I want people to, to know that there's this other thing out there that's so much greater than all of us. And if I can somehow put it into words, and it's interesting because, the last time it happened to me, where I was experiencing this, and I could feel my ego thinking, like, how do I explain this? How do I translate this? And I heard my spirit say, it really is all unexplainable. And I started laughing because I had been trying so hard to think of how to explain something that just isn't explainable, and it just hit me how futile it really is.
It actually is incredibly futile, yeah. It is. It's one of those things, you either get it or you don't. And if you haven't experienced it, there's no way to fully comprehend it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure. So, Kristina, you teach people how to develop mediumship abilities, as I just mentioned. And, for people like me that are like, yeah, I've seen, I'll take people through guided meditations. I've done it myself, where we cross over. Not cross over, but we just go deep into meditation and into a place where, our minds are quiet. Maybe we reach that delta or theta brainwave. And in that, it's this process of visualization and connecting with those who have crossed over. And but that's about as close as I've gotten personally to being able to, connect. I mean, there's been signs, obviously, that I've gotten from those who have crossed over, but definitely not anything like what you do as a profession. So, how is it that, like, what is a mediumship ability? How do we know if we really do have it or not?
Well, the first question that everyone seems to have is, how do I know if it's my imagination or if it's actual communication? And the easy answer to that is, usually it will come in claircognizance. So it'll pop into your head in a thought. And if it's a thought that is pretty normal for you to think, or something that is not outside of your realm to think, it's probably you making it up. If it's something that you would never think of, or words that you would just not ever use, they're just not in your vocabulary, then it's much more likely to be communication. That's the easiest way to discern that. When I'm teaching the classes, and mediumship is one chapter, it's not the whole class. So, but when we're doing that, I have my students facing each other, and one will open up their heart center and send energy to the other person's heart center and connect their energies. And then they'll both take a moment to feel that. And then the person who sent it will disconnect and pull back their energies. And then they discuss how that feels. So and that's a few different exercises in, but that's one of the ways where you can tune into somebody and get information for them, whether it's through mediumship, whether it's through their spirit guides, the universe at large. Sometimes I don't even know where the information's coming from. It just comes. But when we directly connect with someone, we have more access to their larger spirit, because our spirits don't fit in our bodies. We're not big enough for that. They don't completely fit in our bodies. So we can communicate that way. Of course, then they switch places and connecting and disconnecting, but it's an incredibly powerful thing to be able to be in someone's energy field and have, with permission, putting it out there for ethical reasons, with permission, be in someone's energy field, because it's an incredibly intimate thing to have access to that kind of information. It should be done with a lot of respect.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So what does it mean to open your heart center? Like when I think of opening it, I think about it from a visualization of the heart chakra opening up really wide and maybe seeing it in green and pink colors. But like, does it have and I think about it too from an energetic healing perspective. What's your definition of it?
I would normally call it a heart chakra. I've gotten used to calling it a heart center because not everyone knows what chakras are.
Okay. So it is opening the heart chakra up.
Yes.
Okay. And do you visualize, is it an exercise in visualization where you see the two heart centers connecting?
Yes. It is for me. For some people, they just feel it. I mean, I visualize it, but not everyone does.
Interesting.
Yeah, we all learn how to communicate differently, whether we're just having a conversation like you and I are having, or whether it's spirit communication or energetic communication. We all kind of have our own styles and ways of doing it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Just like we all have our own ways of communicating, our thoughts and our feelings, and even the way we tell jokes, right? Like it's all, right. We all have our own style.
Exactly. And every psychic that you talk to is going to have their own style. We're individuals. We do things maybe a little bit differently. I'm explaining my process, but that doesn't mean that every other psychic uses the same process. I have done some gallery readings. I was part of a group called the Mediums, and we had 5 of us on the same stage at the same time, taking turns doing readings for the audience. And all 5 of us had our own process. None of us had the same process.
Yeah, that's cool. And, I feel like there's probably different styles, right, that work better with different people who are different. And we're just kind of drawn to, by spirit to maybe the medium that has the maybe the communication style that works for us or works best for us.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's all energy matches. Some people, like I have a list of other psychics that I can send people to if we don't happen to be an energy match. And I'm perfectly okay with that because energy is energy. I don't take it personally. So if it's just not an energy match and I'm having difficulty really connecting with that person, I'll go through my mental list of people I know and see who matches more closely energetically and refer to them.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's that's really cool. Yeah, I know I've definitely spoken with a couple that I was not an energetic match with for sure. And you can feel the difference when you're talking to someone that you just connect with, and it's like, yeah, that's it.
Right. I know talking with you in Woodbury, we instantly connected. It was just an immediate, easy rapport.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's something to be said about you and the way you come off. I was talking to someone the other day, and I was saying how there are a lot of folks in the spiritual community that like play a role. We play roles, and like you walk up to a booth at an expo or something, and there's a psychic or a medium sitting behind the table, and when you talk to them, you feel like you're talking to a psychic or a medium because they have that whole sort of persona that they're working with. And then there are people like you who you walk up to, and it's like, wow, you can just be like my neighbor. Like you're just
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I felt with you immediately. Like, holy moly, like you could just be someone that I ran into the store. Like I would never have guessed. You just come off. You're just very down to earth and humble, and you just have a really like peaceful energy about you. And I think that says a lot about your character. And so absolutely. That's kind of how I am too. People want to talk about energy healing and things like that. It's going to be like you're talking to your brother about it. It's not going to be like you're talking to, some guru, which obviously I'm not, but you know what I mean? Like it's just real.
Thank you. That was a very kind compliment. I very much appreciate hearing that. I've never felt like just because I have this particular skill, I'm somehow better than anybody. I mean, there are people who have all kinds of skills I don't have, and I don't think they're better than I am. So why would I present myself that way?
Absolutely. It's Alan Watts and the Wu Wei, and trying not to, we shouldn't force things. And
Right.
he says, if you're watching a play and the actor's trying too hard, you can tell the actor's trying too hard. So
the William Shatner method of acting.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That is so true. Oh my goodness. So you teach classes, but you also have a book that you've written called Intuitive You. And
Right.
Can you talk a little bit, tell us about what Intuitive You is, what's inside, and what people learn from the book?
Okay, well, the book is actually the culmination of 12 years of teaching the class Intuitive You. So the book is named after the class. It's basically the textbook for the class, and it is written in a way that it can be used as independent study or as the text for the class book with a teacher. There are five currently certified Intuitive You teachers, 3 in Wisconsin, 2 in Washington State. And someone could go to one of them with the book and get the same class they're going to get from me. So it's a growing thing where I know people have heard of like Lisa Williams and her mediumship classes. This is the same thing. She's just further down the path. I mean, not the same thing because that's her method. This is my method. But the Intuitive You book covers the 12 universal laws. It covers, universal laws of manifesting, which of course I apply towards intuition. And let's see, the clairs. So we have clairaudient, clairvoyant, clairsentient, claircognizant, clairgustant, sorry. And there's one more. I don't have a book in front of me.
We'll just call it the Eclair because those are so good.
So
there you go.
So basically it's seeing, feeling, hearing, thinking, tasting, and smelling. Clairalience, that's it. Clairalience is clear smelling. So we go over that. We go over how energy works, how we can be tricked by how we read energy. We go over a whole bunch of stuff on filters. And have you ever gone to a psychic and you get a reading, but when you walk away, you feel like they were talking about themselves in the reading?
I don't know that I've ever had that experience, but I've definitely had the experience, which is probably something different than you're talking about, where it's like, that just felt completely off. Like there was just nothing going on there.
Right. And that will happen for one of 2 reasons. Well, okay, one of 3 reasons. The first reason is it's not an energy match. If you're not an energy match for someone, they're not going to be able to read you real well. The second one is that they have their filters fully in place and they're not even aware that they're running information through their own filters. Filters are political, religious, socioeconomic, relationship. It's your own, we all have them. Our own experiences create the filters, and the filters in which that we think through, that guide us towards liberalism or conservatism, guide us to religion or spirituality. We all have these filters. If someone is, no matter how psychic they are, if they're not aware of their filters and they're not setting their filters aside, or at least being aware of them, they're going to skew all of the information coming through because it's being run through their filters. Now, when we do a reading, no matter how clear we are, I pass along the information. Most of the people who are getting a reading aren't aware of their own filters either. So everything I say gets run through a second set of filters. And so sometimes that's why it doesn't feel like it matches up. The third option is they're either really not psychic and they either know it or don't know it. Because I have met some people who swear up and down that they're psychic, but I don't see it. I'm just going to say I don't see it.
Yeah, I think that's probably what keeps a lot of us too from pursuing it, because it's like, I don't want to be a fraud,
Yeah.
because when you talk to someone, even whether it's mediumship or it's psychic, you're taking on a lot. Like that person who you're reading is trusting you, and they're opening themselves up and being this vulnerable state. And you can do a lot of damage to somebody if you're not, if you're not gifted, if you don't have that ability, you can't, and you're faking it. Even if you don't realize you're faking it,
Yeah.
that's a heavy game to play with somebody.
It is, absolutely. Absolutely. I know that this field has a really bad reputation for fraud. But I really believe after all of these years of working with people, other psychics, teaching people psychic ability, doing all of these things, I really feel like most of the people actually don't even know that they're being fraudulent. They really believe that they have the ability.
Yeah, because it would take a pretty I'm trying to not use a word or be too judgmental, but
Right.
it takes a certain kind of person to willingly and knowingly be that deceitful to somebody else.
Right. Yeah, I would agree with that. Regardless of levels of ability, I really feel that most people in my field just want to help people.
Yep, absolutely.
They really do. They really just want to help people. And so they're coming from the right place. So hopefully with programs like Intuitive You and with other programs that are set up for psychic development, it would be really nice if people were taking these. There's the whole double-edged sword as far as certification. I certify people at the end of the program, but they have to pass a test. They have to be able to pass a test. So we have a final exam at the end of level 3 where people have to pass it in order to be certified as an Intuitive You psychic. In writing the program, I just want to share this with you real quick. This program came about because a woman had lost her son to an accident unexpectedly the day after he graduated from high school, and she wanted to be able to communicate with him. So we had mutual friends. She got a hold of my number. She called me, said, I need to learn how to talk to someone who's crossed over, and you're the one who's supposed to teach me. I can just feel it. And I was like, I've never taught a class in my life. I don't know how to do this. This was all going on in my head. And I opened my mouth to say, no, I'm not qualified. Let me refer you. And yes came out. And that was 12 years ago. So here we are 12 years later, and the Intuitive You program is in full swing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a story. So Intuitive You, it teaches people how to be a psychic and to be a medium?
Yes, it teaches energy management, personal energy management. That's something that if we were teaching toddlers personal energy management, we wouldn't have bullies. It's that simple. There'd be no reason to bully because people would be managing their own energy fields and not getting involved in other people's business. It's just amazing how powerful it is. So that's taught in there. We cover mediumship and some basic energy healing techniques. We go over the basic chakra system and some sound healing techniques. We do that too. And then we cover, the last 2 chapters are paranormal investigation. So we have fun with it too.
So can someone take this book, like if you're someone like that doesn't have a big community of like-minded people, and let's just say you're rolling solo, is this a book that you can take on your own and learn how to do these things, or do you need someone to practice with, or what's the process
ideally there? It is written so that it can be independent study, so ideally you should be able to do that, but as far as like connecting and disconnecting, you have to have somebody to practice with. So hopefully people can find at least one other person in their circle who's willing to get practice readings. Oh, we cover toys. The toys is what I call them. But the tarot cards and the angel cards and pendulums and divining rods. So we play with those too.
Oh, wow. Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were kind enough to give me a copy of your book at the expo, and I have that on my next to read list. So I'm really excited to go through it. And you know what? Maybe what we can do is, if you're game, once I read through it, I'd love to have you come back on, and maybe we can talk a little bit more in detail about some of the specific areas of the book, and this could be something too that you're able to share with the folks who are in your class and who have bought your books, and send it out to your people too, so we can maybe figure out what the best way to do that would be. But that would be a lot of fun.
That would be great. Yeah, there's a resource page in my book too that sends you to my website, and then we have all of the certified intuitive view teachers listed on a page on my website. So if somebody in Bellevue, Washington buys my book, there's a teacher in there that they can get a hold of. The class is also, I'm tech challenged, so it's taking way longer than it should, but I'm working on also putting it online as an online class.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great. Yeah. Well, we'll wait till you get your course online, and then we'll have something else to promote, which will be great. So
yeah.
Excellent. Well, believe it or not, Kristina, we've been talking for close to an hour already, and
wow.
I know the time flies by here on the SpiritWoke podcast. But before we go, is there anything that you would like to plug in addition to the book? How do people get in touch with you?
All right. Yeah, my website, KristinaBloom.com. That's an easy way to get in touch with me. I have a Facebook page. It's Kristina L. Bloom Spiritual Advisor is the name of my page on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I don't really know how to use Instagram, so that's probably not the best option. I'm lost. Pictures come and go, and I have no idea what just happened. But those are probably the two best ways to contact me. All my contact information is on my website, and that's about it. It's my classes are also listed on my website. My coaching program. I do business coaching for people with spiritual or heart-based businesses. So that's another thing that's on there. Lots of fun stuff.
That's awesome. So for those listening into the podcast, I don't know who else I'd be talking to right now, but Kristina is spelled with a K, so KristinaBloom.com.
Thank you.
Oh, of course, and you can check it out too if you're go to SpiritWoke.com, and you can search for Kristina's name, and you'll find the page where this podcast lives, and you'll find all the links to how to get a hold of Kristina, whether it be your website or Facebook or any of the multitude of places. And with that being said, Kristina, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for sharing your gifts with us.
You're so welcome. Can I just plug one more thing?
Please.
The book released today on Amazon. You can go to Amazon.com, put Intuitive View into the search engine, and go right to the book. It's for sale there today.
Outstanding. Look at that.
Thank you.
This is fantastic. Talk about a synchronicity. Being on the podcast and having the book as synchronicity for me. So,
thank you.
All right. Well, all right, friends. Well, until next time, be well, take care of yourselves, and enjoy the beautiful winter. We'll talk soon.
Thanks for listening to the SpiritWoke Podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to check out our website, SpiritWoke.com, and connect with the SpiritWoke community on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Just search SpiritWoke. Join us next time for another edition of the SpiritWoke Podcast. Namaste.